Vice presidential candidate Paul Ryan firing up crowds about reforming government spending programs. But public unions firing back, not about his Medicare plan, about his plan to make government workers kick in more for their retirement so taxpayers can pay less. And the pension fight coming, as we're finding out thousands of federal retirees are collecting six figures in their golden years. So is the Ryan pension plan the right plan for taxpayers? Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Buttner. This is Bulls and Bears. And here we are, the Bulls and Bears this week. We've got Gary B. Smith, Tobin Smith, Jonas Max Ferris, along with Todd Schoenberger and Sarah Flowers. Welcome to everybody. Okay, Todd, let's get going. The Ryan pension fix, the right fix for us, taxpayers.
Well, it is, Brenda, but it's also the responsible plan. Look, you're looking at 21,000 federal retirees that are receiving a pension, a lifetime pension in the six-digit range. Many are actually receiving as much as $200,000. What's that mean for taxpayers? Well, we're looking at a $2 trillion shortfall. We have to fill the gap, and that's what Ryan is coming out with. That's all he's doing. He's doing the responsible fiscal thing, but he's getting a lot of backlash for it.
But, Sarah, to be fair, the average pension is closer to like $35,000, and federal workers are already have a pay freeze. Is this fair?
Well, here's how it's not fair. We're talking about a 5.4% effective pay cut for average workers. For people, for some of us, that may not sound like a lot, but to somebody who's making the average federal salary, which is less than $70,000, we're talking about thousands of dollars that aren't going back into our economy. That's school supplies not being bought, that's a new computer not being bought, that's money not going into the economy, which is bad for us all.
Gary B.?
Well, Sarah's absolutely right if we're just talking about salaries. Unfortunately, we're not. We're talking about pensions. And pensions for the public sector, like-for-like job compared to the private sector, are almost 50% more. We now have a few $trillion, I forget the exact amount, $2 trillion of unfunded pension liability at the federal government level. So clearly the math says that asking federal employees to kick in what amounts to another 5%, I don't think is unfair, considering their pensions are 50% larger than what you get in the private sector.
But let's look at that in comparison to the rest of their compensation. Federal employees make less than similarly skilled people could in the public sector. There are also people like our DEA agents that keep us all safe. Fire and police.
Well, go ahead, Gary.
Sarah, this is Toby. You know, that's a very nice thought, and maybe that would have applied 10 years ago. But if you actually look at the numbers over the last 36 months, other than lawyers and judges, I mean, judges could make more money as free practicing lawyers, almost every side is in a higher rate. And Gary's point is, and you have to include salaries and pension because the pension plan is so gilded. Now, look at this idea of actually trying to match somewhat of our income with our outgo and with our liabilities is something that we've not had to do because we could just borrow trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars to plug the hole. Well, that time is coming to an end, and this is the ultimate responsibility, which makes me, fall over this guy to actually bring this point up.
Okay, smart boy seat, Jonas, weigh in here.
It sounds like a lot to say like 20,000 federal workers have six-figure pensions, but that's actually a really small fraction of the giant federal workforce. A lot of them are doctors that work for the federal government. Yeah, they make money, they get high pensions. It's not that outlandish that they do that. In general, there's a lot of pension underfunding in America, in the federal level, on the state level, and on the corporate level. And taxpayers are on the hook for all of it, one way or the other. So all of these pensions across the board, including federal, need more money going into them. They're not earning enough money, especially the private ones, to make good. And the taxpayers are there. So everyone's got to kick in a little more, take a pay cut, whatever, to shore up these pensions, including federal workers.
And Todd, actually, the private sector is facing this problem as well, and companies have their own solutions for this.
That's right. They just simply buy out the employee. I mean, look, it's a much cheaper component for a businessman to actually buy out his current employees rather than having to face a lifetime amount of money that they have to keep spending only because people continue to live longer, plus added health care costs. The thing about it, though, is the federal government on these pension sides, I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars, $70 billion billion a year that actually we have to fund to actually keep the pension money, the pension account up there. $13 billion just in added health care costs. This is a continued epidemic for the federal government because it continues to expand. You've seen it over the last 4 years. We just continue to borrow and expand, and this is the result. This is what we have to do right now.
Well, Sarah, everyone, the point is a good one of Todd's that everybody is making sacrifices. Why not then federal workers?
Because these are simply, the way they're lined out in the Ryan plan, not fair to the workers. And they're not an apples to apples comparison when you look at the private sector.
Yeah.
When you look at 70% of those currently enrolled in the pension plan, they're in the old style of the pension plan, which means they don't get Social Security benefits the way a private sector worker would. It's not a one-to-one comparison.
Well, it's not at all clear
Sarah,
that Social Security is even going to be around. But go ahead. Go ahead.
But
Well, not with Paul Ryan.
But listen, I would opt out if I had the chance to opt out of Medicare and Social Security and be in the government plan. Oh my Lord, I'd take the government plan any day of the week. The other part that you're missing, I think, here is that we could go out and float a 100-year bond and buy out these guys. If we're paying 2% interest rate, I'm all for borrowing that money because that money would save us maybe $2 or $5 trillion a year as we get to the maturing point. We could do this like private sector. I think Ryan was sort of soft pedaling. Yeah, there's even a better idea. Buy them out now.
Gary B, go ahead.
Well, I think it's interesting that the left all along has made the arguments that, quote unquote, millionaires and billionaires should pay their fair share. And Obama's asking for what, another 4.5% from the 2% of the population is in that. But when it comes to the other side of the coin, when we're asking these rich pensioners, and that's what they are, these government employees, to kick in there, all of a sudden, oh, no, that's not fair. So I don't think you can have it both ways.
Well, Jonas, are they really rich pensioners?
It's less than 2%. Those Social Security thing. I don't want to knock. Social Security is a huge pension plan for everybody else. Like if you reduced your pension in the private sector for whatever reason, bankruptcy, union stuff, you still have your Social Security income. Like to not have that and then take that big a hit on your federal pension is kind of a double hit in some ways because that was your only pension. This whole buyout concept sounds good on paper, but when you put an offer out to buy out someone's pension, you have to offer them a return. It's a lump sum payment. All the people that like smoke and are in bad health and are probably going to die younger than actuary dates are going to come forward and take the lump sum, which means it could cost the government more because the healthy people stay in the long-term stream of income.
That's a lot of it.
I just think that it's not the greatest way out of these plans.
Go ahead, Todd.
In the private sector, we would love to have these types of pensions, but they don't exist anymore. The years of getting the gold watch and getting the great pension, they just don't exist. Here in the federal government, you could take any job that you want, and you're guaranteed money. Look, the fact that you're saying that this is, Jennifer talked about a pay cut here of 5.4%. Sarah, I'm sorry. They're putting the money back into they're actually contributing to their future. That's just like us, a self-employed businessman putting money into their Social Security
but Todd, why is it the federal workers' fault that the private workers lost their pensions and got crummy 401ks a few years ago?
Nobody's saying it is.
Okay, Jonas, but that's not the point. Look, talk about millionaires. If you have $1 million in a bank today and the best CD rate, you're making $40,000 a year, right? These people are paying on average $70, many times $120,000. That's like having $3 or $4 million cash money in the bank paying you CD. So come on, these guys are absolutely millionaires.
Okay, that's got to be the last word. Thanks, guys.